those are awesome.
Where you at?
Oh, he's already on my time.
Look, I got someone says you're going for it.
Yeah, well, we're not even asking. We used to.
Normally it does. It likes to go off.
Franklin doesn't sell the spray
Oh, we have two minutes.
Take it. Should last.
Oh, I got
That's what I'm saying, that's what I'm like, this is the first time I've been here and I've seen people, I'm like, well, I can see it, I see it. Like this.
Mine always, I very rarely have my ring. The only time I do is when late and I'm supposed to put it on here. Yeah, no, wait a minute.
Pass that list over there to Derek.
We don't have any money to support the bar, so. They're trying to get an age back. Well, because I can. All of that I've got is weird screens. You probably know what you need. No, I have to speak, it's not.
That's probably the only three. It should be 4 y'all, and Alan will just take the next hour and a half.
Do we know a little bit of what needs to be said?
Tuscaloosa.
We can't get
Try to be safe.
Call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge and invocation.
Yes. And bow our heads, please. Lord God, as we're gathered here tonight, go about the business of the city of Ocean Springs, give us the guidance and the wisdom to make right decisions by all our citizens. Father, we pray for our Ocean Springs policemen and firemen as they protect and guide us and keep Ocean Springs safe. May they always be loyal to their oath of service and protection. God bless them. God bless us all. For all these things we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to accept the addendum and the agenda? All right, motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Blackman, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're gonna get right into the old business. Patty, would you like to, I know you've been working on this Mississippi Power stuff, the election, so you want to give us a rundown of what we're doing here?
Well, actually, Shelby, I've kind of got Vicki running that part of it. I did reach out to Mississippi Power today and found out some pretty interesting facts that I think you guys will all find interesting. So Mississippi Power gives the city of Ocean Springs 3% of what it takes in from over in Ocean Springs. If people vote this down, this will not change their electric bill. They will not see a change one way or the other. It's just Ocean Springs will not receive the 2% and the other % will go to another pot. It'll go like to the state. So voting this down won't save anybody any money, but it will cost the city about $160,000 a year. I thought that was kind of interesting because they're going to explain it to me today. Beyond that, elections are a lot of work and they're very technical, and so Vicki's in charge.
Okay. Good deal. All right, is there a motion to approve the proposed municipal franchise ordinance?
So moved.
All right, motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Payne. Any further discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call. Mr. Gill?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, motion passes. And item B, Patty? This is just to set the, set the election date, August 4th? Is that right?
I'll make a motion to accept the date of August 4th for the special election of the Mississippi Power franchise agreement.
Second.
All right, motion Mr. Blackman, second Mr. Hoffman. Need a roll call? Mr. Gill?
Aye. 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 Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Authorize, let's see, item C, authorize mayor to execute agreement with Jackson County, authorizing Jackson County election commissioners to conduct all the duties of municipal election commissioners. We discussed this. Basically, it's pretty standard. Nicole,
Yeah, we already have an agreement with them, or we did a resolution outlining their duties, but this is just the agreement specifically with Jackson County Election Commission that they've asked us to have executed to confirm everything.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 3C.
all right, motion to approve, Mr. Gill.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blackman. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, discussion of the library contract renewal. Anybody have any questions on that? It's pretty standard stuff.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 3E.
Second. Motion to approve by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Hoffman. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, approve appeal of planning department's decision regarding installation of sidewalks for a commercial mini storage warehouse development.
Yeah, this is a follow-up from the last meeting. We did go back and we worked with Mr. Fountain as far as an alternative to the sidewalk, and he has agreed to put in additional landscape buffer. There's already a required landscape buffer, and what he's going to do is enhance that. Wade Morgan laid out a plan that would be acceptable, and we did hear from Mr. Fountain that that would be agreeable. So we'd like to, as you have in your packet, to revise that to support ZAB's recommendation to grant them the appeal, and with the additional landscape buffer as agreed in lieu of the bond.
Is there a motion to approve the appeal?
I'll make a motion we approve the appeal.
Second. All right, motion Mr. Blackman, second Mr. Cox. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, discussion of Grassmaster's quote for crepe myrtle maintenance. Alan.
The quote that we have the one that y'all have there, the first number on there is just to trim everything and clean up. And then the other three is gonna be 3 years, the way he has it laid out, it's gonna be every February, that'll be a complete trim and do everything.
And just so everybody, myself and Alan met with him, and the biggest cost that they had was the disposal of the haul off. So what we're gonna do is we worked out a plan for them to basically just set the clippings and such on right on the side of the road, and then Public Works is going to pick them up with it.
Public Works to do the haul off, and that way we cut the price way down.
Good. Alan, those last three are cutting the shoots and trimming the top.
Yes, yes.
That's a pretty good price.
He said he would really like to do it because that's his trademark, I mean, that's his name on that median, he's cutting the grass already.
Now, just make sure you cut them back, like it was last time we cut them, that was a good cut.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not forget who did that, but anyway,
Yeah,
yes, they can really, they went about a buck on
he's pretty good, he's done good work, we had no issues with him so far.
it. You're gonna haul everything off every year, and that includes the suckers,
Yeah.
okay? Well, let me say this now to you. They usually cut them in the early spring. There's hardly any suckers on there, so, really you should get away from the top sprouts out and then the bottom sprouts out.
Yeah, he said,
Doesn't stop that, be
February
nothing.
and March is the time of year to trim them.
Huh?
He said February and March is the time of year to trim them.
You have to trim the top. I'm talking about the suckers.
Yeah.
The suckers don't grow out.
He's gonna keep the suckers cut once he gets them down.
Okay, okay, so this is to keep them.
Yeah,
No, he may have to go through 2 or 3 times, but this is to keep them.
yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody heard that.
He said he's gonna keep, get weedy and after you cut them.
He said once he got them down and everything, got it.
That's what he plans on doing.
Yeah.
He's doing the medium, so I assume he'll
Yeah,
weed them when he goes through.
We need to approve this, Alan, or
he's good to go whenever y'all say it's good to go.
Yes,
Something that needs to be approved.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract with Grassmasters Lawn Care with the agreement that's described on in a letter form. I put the letter in the minutes. I'll second
All right, motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Papania. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, and a couple items from the addendum. This is really just kind of housekeeping here. This is ratify my decision to cancel the Independence Day celebration and downtown road closures. So if there's a motion to ratify that.
make a motion to ratify the decision to cancel July 4th celebration of downtown road closure.
So,
Motion, Mr. Cox, second, Mr. Blackman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, it's about time to go out for RFP for tennis instructor, and, talk about potential contract amendments. So, does anybody have any thoughts on that? We got the new parks director coming in.
What date has he given us a date?
August 4th, I believe. August 4th.
Wouldn't it be just as well wait for him to get here, like, to start that?
We could.
It's gonna be his.
Let him, the guy.
The thing is, this contract's up July 15th. So,
Yeah.
We just extended till August 4th.
They're gonna be playing tennis
Why
different.
don't we extend it and give the new director time to come in and make the change?
I mean, we could always go out and.
I'd rather go out and
I
do it.
don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, we can go and get the ball rolling. and
Go out.
we'll certainly bring him
Get
in.
advertised.
Well, let me ask y'all something, that's not too good done, what do you think about it? Think it's okay you to approve this now?
Yeah, just advertise,
You think so?
Yeah, because we got a long way. I mean, there's some things we want to change contractually with the way we take money in from tennis lessons and stuff like that. So I think we need to started now, because if we wait until August to do all that, we're gonna be pushing October.
Right.
Go ahead and make a motion. That's good. Thank you.
I make a motion that we go out for advertising for the RFP for the tennis instructor and potential contract.
All right, motion by Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Gill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are to the consent. Before we get to the consent, I believe Georgia, we have some representative from Singular Health System who wanted to give us a quick update on some things. Joe?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
Thanks. I'll take this off my feet. Hi, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, everybody. I'm Georgia Story, a resident of Ocean Springs. I'm here tonight actually with Ocean Springs Chamber leadership. We wanted to talk with you guys a little and give you an update on what's happening with the COVID situation. So I'm also on the Singing River team, so I ran some fresh stats just to give you all an update. If you heard Dr. Dobbs' press conference today, you heard him mention that cases are skyrocketing across the state, and that is the case in Ocean Springs as well. So we want to make sure y'all are aware of that. The spike we're seeing across Jackson County is happening mainly among younger folks now. Age 20 to 29 is the highest prevalence of increase in cases. To give you some context of what it looks like, and I'll leave this with you guys. This is our case tracking, just for Singing River, right? Cases that we know about. So we don't test everybody who gets a test in our area, but this is where we've been as far as numbers are positive. This is where we're headed. So we've got a trend that needs to be slowed down significantly. So there are some ways to do that, and we're going to be partnering with the chamber to work with our businesses. Here comes Lee Bond, who knows everything about COVID. We're going to be working together, but we really need y'all's help to get the word out and talk about what we're going to do. We're not going to stamp out this virus, but we have to slow it down because it's going to impact our businesses, it's going to impact our ability to go back to school, to go to church, it's going to impact our ability to run our hospitals. So we're here tonight to try to help drum up support to do just that, and I think Dr. Moore has some more information about what the chamber will be doing. We brought we're about to launch with the health system, a new kind of 2.0 campaign. I think people have just grown tired of hearing about COVID, and that's understandable, but the outbreaks we're seeing are going to be very, very difficult for all of us if we don't all get together and try to slow this down. So I'm going to leave a stack of these with you guys, if y'all wouldn't mind helping share them. If we can be a resource for the city, for businesses, for groups, for schools. We had a conference with Dr. Coleman today. She very much wants to open school, and we want her to. We all want to be able to reopen. It's not anybody's position that we all go back into shutdown mode. However, today too, you'll know that the State Department of Health has stopped elective surgeries in a few counties, not here, thankfully, but that's the beginning of going back to a shutdown. That means their caseloads are getting so high that they're having to slow things down. I think that's happening in Forest County and up around Jackson. We don't want any of that here. We've come too far and done too well, but I will tell you, to go from 20-something cases on June 1st in Ocean Springs zip code up to over 80 today is pretty steep for a community of our size. So just don't want to be an alarmist, but do want to sound an alarm that we need to pay close attention and hope that you guys.
And with the skyrocketing cases, how is the death rate? How's the death rate? I mean, are more people dying from this?
Lee, you want to jump on this?
I mean, if we're having more cases, you would assume that there would be more deaths.
Yeah, so the death rate is actually not up. The death rate is down.
So less people are dying, more cases.
More cases. The concern is that, as like what George just said, we had over the weekend, we had 90 cases. That is unbelievable. That means there's 90 people walking around that could potentially infect someone who is immunosuppressed or older. And, one person's grandmother is one grandmother too many.
Is that Ocean Springs? Ocean Springs?
No, those 90 cases were throughout Jackson County, but I will be honest with you, Ocean Springs is up more than any other city right now. Again, not to be an alarmist, but if elective surgeries get shut down, that is gonna be a real problem for our community and our physicians. You know, if you're the one that needs the hip or knee replacement, or something else, a colonoscopy, you know, colonoscopies can find cancer. Colonoscopies are critical, in my opinion. I don't think they should be elected, but we cannot be that county that has elective surgeries. And we're right there on the cusp. And so, again, not to be alarmist, but we're here, I think the goal is we gotta educate people. You can be around other people safely, but what's happening is, in our contact tracing, it's people that are touching their face, you know, some of you are touching your face right now. You know, people that are in their, people that are spreading it in their homes, visiting older loved ones that they don't have to. The younger people, you know, that are getting it, they're able to weather it better. Some of them are. If your BMI, if you have high BMI, your risk is infinitely higher of suffering that. We've got people in the hospital right now that are under 30 that have a high BMI that are struggling with this disease. But yeah, our message is, you know, be smart and you know, think about other people. When you go and interact with some people, you know, maintain a safe distance. Don't talk face to face to someone real close. Don't be a close talker, as the Seinfeld episode says. Don't be a close talker. Wash your hands often. And if you're working in a confined space with somebody, or in your confined space with somebody at home, please make extra efforts not to touch that person or hug them or shake their hand. That's the best thing everybody can do. We got to renew our focus. We got to educate. Y'all got to tell people that they got to be more careful. You can be safe. You can work safely with people. Like you guys sitting right there, you're fine sitting right there like that. But if you turn to each other and start talking, and little droplets of spit come out of your mouth and get in somebody else's eye or mouth, you got COVID, they're gonna get it. They're gonna get it.
It's what happened at the Capitol. Y'all hear about that?
How many people do you actually, how many people do you have in the Ocean Springs Hospital right now with COVID? Roughly.
There are 4. 1 is in the ICU and 3 are in regular med surg rooms. We have 12 in Pascagoula. But in the hospital itself, we tried to cohort people in one spot in Pascagoula. There were just so many coming in that we ended up having to, you know, capture some in Ocean Springs.
So these 90 folks this past weekend, most of them went back home and stayed at home?
Yes. The large majority of them did not get hospitalized. But the ones who did are in. They're having serious problems. We are very, God has blessed us with the remdesivir, so we've been able to treat people with that. That helps. We got some of the best doctors in the world. That helps. But, you know, if we had about 12 more people hospitalized, we'd be in a bind because we might not have enough nurses at some point to cover that many people. So we gotta pump the brakes and be careful. We don't have to be crazy, you know. I mean, we don't have to be, you know, this whole mask thing. There's people on the left and people on the right. They're both wrong. The truth is in the middle.
Usually the case.
You know, the truth is in the middle. Wearing a mask will not save you. You could get infected by adjusting the mask, but where the mask helps is if you have one iota of a symptom, a little tickle in your throat, a headache, fatigue, minor fever, any of that, if you've got the smallest of symptoms, isolate is better than a mask. If you can't isolate, wear a mask and get tested immediately. We have plenty of ability to test you. You call Georgia or call the hospital, we can get you tested that day. So we have plenty of testing capability. People are ignoring their symptoms. We see that more than anything. People say, I thought I had sinuses. Well, you normally have something. No, but I thought that's what this was. You know, I had this migraine headache. I had fatigue. Those are symptoms. So, and also people need to be courteous at work. You know, what's happening is people are afraid of losing their job. So they say, I'm going to fight through it. We got a guy, we have a person that is struggling right now with this that thought they could fight through it. You can't fight through this. It's not like the flu or the cough. If you got it, you need to see a doctor because the days of fighting through it, if you've got comorbidities, it's not like that.
Do you have enough ventilators in the hospital?
We have plenty of ventilators. We've got ventilators, never were and are not the problem. We got probably 70-something ventilators. The problem is, we've got, you know, normal operations, people with normal heart conditions and strokes and things like that, babies being born. You know, we've got 300 people between the two hospitals in the hospitals. We only have so many nurses. We've only got 900 nurses. To take care of another 80 patients, you need another, you know, 300 nurses.
So a hospitalized COVID patient demands a lot of care. It's just very, very, not to be, you know, not to desensitize it, but it's very labor intensive, lots of one-on-one attention. So that means it's harder to take care of all the other regular hospital needs. So that's a concern for sure.
Common sense is what people need to exercise.
If somebody's already had it, can they catch it again?
You know, the doctor might can answer better than me. My understanding is the jury's still out on that.
We still have it.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure.
When we don't know how
About a
long people.
vaccine, is y'all got any word of any kind of vaccine?
There's some promising alleged studies, but until we see it, we have to assume we may not have one. I think one day somebody's gonna come up with one, but there's nothing on the horizon that is definitive.
So remember, this is summer when flu takes a break. COVID decided not to do that. And so COVID and flu will ramp up as we get into the autumn season. So that's a concern too. So I think now we're just thinking about how do we re-educate. The chamber wants to go out. We've got to remind our businesses even of the governor's orders and the State Department of Health guidelines that talk a lot about occupancy, about wearing masks, about social distancing. Some of the gatherings that we're seeing across the county are not consistent with that. And that's just going to end up in closures that nobody wants to see happen, and a lot of sick employees and customers. So I think that's what we're focusing on from the chamber, and certainly that will help all of us in the health system keep everybody healthy.
Thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
All right, we'll move to the consent agenda. I need to remove.
Actually, I was.
Oh, so I'm sorry, yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
I apologize.
I had a couple more things. Cynthia's worked real hard with some of the other members on the chamber team to try and think, what can we do to help our businesses out? We recognize this is not a normal time. And we want everybody else to recognize that as well. We are in the middle of a pandemic. This is nothing any of us have encountered in our lifetime. I'm reading a book right now about the 1918 influenza epidemic. And fortunately, that gives me some solace that we are not in that bad of a state, but there are lots of things we can do. And I think that's one of the things people feel bad about is the sense of almost helplessness. They're exhausted over thinking about pandemics. They're anxious and they just say, screw it. I'm just going to go about my day and I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm not going to worry about it. Well, as Georgia and Lee have reiterated, it's not just the healthy people that are, you know, it's your parents, your grandparents, anybody you know with diabetes or asthma, chronic smokers. I'm saying in the state of Mississippi, we are one of the most obese states in the country, and obesity is fourfold increased risk of death. So we need to be serious about it, but we also want to be practical about it. The fire department donated, I think, 1,000 cloth masks that they got and gave to the chamber. We were thinking, well, what could we do with them? We want to make those available to our businesses because the data is very clear about the importance of masking. 95% of people would wear a mask. We could drop the COVID infection rate by over 60%. That's a simple way to flatten the curve. I personally don't understand in the setting of a pandemic why people are so opposed to wearing a mask. It's a public health. It's easy. It doesn't cause anybody anything but a nuisance. I've had 3 patients in the past 10 days diagnosed with COVID. They were pregnant. 2 of them ended up in the hospital. 1 of them I had to transfer to Mobile. It's serious. So for my patients, for my family, I really want everybody to get on board and say this is important. So Cynthia has put together, we didn't bring enough copies, but we are making enough copies of these kind of educational flyers to try and get out to all our businesses around town to help them do the right thing, meet the guidelines that our public health department has put together, because the State Department of Health, that's where the epidemiologists are, who look at the facts and try and make factual-based recommendations so we can avoid getting into the trouble that Houston and Atlanta and Phoenix are in right now. We are a smaller community, thank goodness, so we're already naturally spread out, less so than big cities, but the virus doesn't know where you live. It's going to infect you whether you're in a big city or in a small location. So I just hope y'all will look, ask me any questions you have. We can certainly refer you to experts in our hospital system. And if y'all have questions about what you as a city council can do to help our community, I think that's really important. And we want to provide those resources to you as well. Yeah, my intention isn't to divide us at all, but I do want to remind you, as a physician, I think we have a collective responsibility to keep all our citizens safe and healthy, while still allowing our economy to return to a pattern of sustainable and healthy growth. But it's not going to be the same as it was 6 months ago. We don't live in those times anymore. And I think the more people can recognize that until such time as a vaccine is available, we have to change our behaviors. And that's going to be inconvenient, but not insurmountable. So please reach out to us. Reach out to Georgia, me. I may not know the answers at all, but I certainly know the people in the hospital who do. And we'd love to help you all out in any way we can. So, and any questions y'all have, please let me know.
Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now to the consent agenda. I have 4I that I need to remove. Does anybody else have any items for the consent agenda?
Yeah, I'll look at it. Approve the consent agenda, except item I.
Okay, motion to approve consent, except for item I by Mr. Carroll, second by Mr. Othman. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, department reports. Docket claims. Anybody have any items for the docket claims?
Make a motion to accept the docket claims. Second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Hempy, second by Mr. Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Budget report.
Make a motion to accept the monthly budget report.
Motion by Mr. Blackman. Second by Mr. Pena. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Motion passes. All right, discussion of addition to future agendas. Vicki, y'all, is this something y'all had?
In your agenda, I have written a memo. Sorry, I'm always confusing. I had written a memo to add a section to the agendas moving forward. At the beginning of the meeting,
Got a speaker down
before old and new business, if we could add agenda comment for the public, so that they have a voice before any decisions are made. We've had that requested from us, and other cities do so, as well as the planning commission does so, and then it would only be for items on that specific agenda. If they want to speak about something else, it will be in the same location for general public comment.
I don't have a problem with that. Bill,
It works on planning.
It works really well with the planning commission.
Yes.
where they can respond to me.
we'll do it. All right, discussion of changing polling place from community center to senior center.
So the last election at the community center, most of the poll workers are elderly, and they literally froze to death. I had to find a coffee pot, take them coffee, take them sweaters, and so I was talking to Danny, who's the head of the election commission, and I said, why don't we never use the senior citizen center, because it's way warmer and it's got a kitchen. So that's what we would like to do in the future, is to quit using the community center, because we have to keep it so cold in there due to the walls. And it's always gonna be the elderly that's gonna be the poll workers, and they're in there for 12 hours straight. They cannot leave. And so we're just wanting to change the ordinance to make it be the senior citizen center for future elections instead of the community center. As a matter of fact, they told me the other day that they said that they will not come and work in the community center anymore. He's really struggling to get in.
Well, I guess that's pretty much just sitting inside for us.
Is that the, you talking about the general, the city general municipal election?
Any of them right now that has always been the community center would now just be at the senior citizen center, which is a little inconvenient once they start using it again. But I think they would understand that we still need to do it because it is elderly people that are the poll workers.
I'm fine with it. Do you need a motion?
Motion for authority to move forward with, amending the ordinance.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, motion, Mr. Gill. Second. Second by Mr. Papania. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's see.
Can I ask that we go to F first before E?
Sure. Yeah, we go straight to, Carolyn.
Yeah, this is just, you've been provided some information, and this is just an update that the mayor wanted us to bring. Over the last year, even though we've been delayed here for some time between staff changes and pandemic and other items, we've been, over the last more than a year, been making a concerted effort to improve our internal review process, primarily for subdivisions and new commercial construction. Those are two activities that the public would apply for that require review by all three departments, planning, building, and public works. And the issue that we've run into in the past, has the common theme of issues, has always been communication. It's just simple. It's not that the rules are difficult or unreasonable. It's communication between the departments. So we've been working to refine our process to make sure that internally everything is provided to the applicant and that we have ways of communicating internally. So what you have in front of you is just a brief kind of summary of the conversations we've been having over the last year and a half, and examples of our new application form that we've been using for just under a year. And what it does is, on the application forms themselves, it provides a lot more notes, things that aren't necessarily code, but notes and next steps and explanations on things that they should get started on at what point. So each phase of development would have a different checklist that goes with their application that gives them all of that information. We will we'll continue to refine those as things come up that we hadn't run into before. We were just talking about one earlier that never had applied to any other construction project before, so we'll include that. We'll also have an internal checklist so that at the end of the review, I will have a checklist from Public Works and from the Building Department and from Planning Department that we can check off and make sure that we've looked at everything, that we haven't forgotten to ask any questions. So the forms themselves still have a lot of work to go, and we are going to be working on that as we go forward, but that's just to kind of catch you up where we are on those two major types of applications, the subdivisions and the major commercial construction. The good thing, I guess the side effect of that is we've been fine-tuning our communication on day-to-day things. So just singular one-off building permits that come in, we have a much better process administratively for planning department to sign off and public works to sign off. So those, from what we can tell, are going a lot more smoothly as well, and not running into the same problem. So.
And this is a living document. You know, there's always stuff that'll come up in different, scenarios that we didn't think of. So just we're not asking for any kind of action today, or just want you to kind of get that off the record and get what we've been working on in your hands, and just let us know if there's anything that sticks out, anything we need to clarify or add or subtract. You can tell us right now, or you can tell us at any point.
Well, I know in some of those discussions, we're trying to simplify the process with JCUA. How are those discussions going? I heard from the others from JCUA that wasn't a work, so are we?
The one thing that we've done is we have at least gotten their current form and determined where in the process that we can provide that to the applicant, because they have their own process, and every time that we have asked in the past, you know, we've called over there, we've gotten a different answer. So what we've been talking about is, and I think it was last month or so, that we got the most current. So we have in our checklist and in our order of process, when we make sure that the applicant gets that, actually, that's one of the first conversations we'll have with them, because we have no control over how long it's gonna take with JCUA and the state. So that's the first thing, even at sketch plat, before they even submit for sketch plat, we advise that they go ahead and get their application and start that process and reach out to those agencies directly. So that, all we can tell them before is call JCUA, because we don't know.
We need to reach out to them again, because I had a conversation with a gentleman that said that they were trying to work it out where they could actually pay at our office and we can get it over to them. So I'd like to have a sit down and discuss that with them again.
Yeah.
Because they were willing to work it out and we can make it, because going back and forth, passing
Yes.
bill over here, it's really.
I did talk to Eric Page about that a while back. I just wrote down the call to get touch base on some things. So I'll definitely do that. I'll definitely.
So any ideas, and like I said, as we deal with individual projects, we kind of make notes and try to keep with the checklist. So next time, it may not be an issue that ever comes up on another project, but at least we asked the question and made sure that it was not a problem going forward. But like I said, the original thought was, it's very difficult, not just going to Pascagoula, but when they get bounced between our three departments, it's difficult for them, it's difficult for us. So creating forms that we can use internally to be consistent in how we communicate that's what we're working on now. We haven't quite got there yet, but we're getting there.
Kevin, I assume this follows, I just saw it glancing through, I assume it follows in our UDC.
Yes, yeah, most of that, in fact, there's whole sections, especially when you get into preliminary plat and final plat, where they're copied directly out of the code, as far as what verbiage has to be on there.
None of this supersedes.
No. Yeah, it all reflects it and then has more information that's more policy than it is code.
All right, we'll go ahead and go to the discussion of the tax exemption order of position for the.
Well, what you have in front of you is the draft order. I'm not sure how many of you have been involved with the tax abatement. We don't get them very often. But the tax exemption ordinance allows for pre and post construction orders to be approved by the board. Pre-construction is typically used by a developer who's trying to get their financing together, and it approves it in concept. And when I say approves it, what it does is it documents that their request is consistent with the ordinance. Because as a municipality, we are not the taxing authority. We don't have authority over the tax abatement itself. So what our tax abatement ordinance does is identifies the triggers or the minimums that have to be improved. The value has to increase on the property, and gives a process for documenting that and sending that to the county. Once construction is complete, which generally results in a certificate of occupancy, then we put all the information together as far as the actual value of the permits that were pulled, and we bring in a post-construction order to you. Once that's approved, we put together a packet and give to the applicant to take to Jackson County to actually implement that on their taxes. The way the tax abatement ordinance was developed, it's been in effect since before I got into the office, but we have renewed it every few years. And it applies to a certain physical area, mostly Highway 90, the commercial corridors, and allows for a formula that the county actually does the math on to allow a portion of your city taxes to, I think it's up to 80% of your city taxes to be abated for the first 7 years following construction. So, like I said, it was developed in works very similar to the county has what I call a sister program where you can do that same thing for the county taxes. And it was crafted and based on state statute, which allows us to make this abatement approval. So that's kind of just the overall background of what the post-construction abatement. What you have in here, the inlet is a mixed-use development, so it's been developed over a period of time, and I kind of gave you a rundown of the timeline. So, like I said, it's kind of extended past some of your tenures. But where we are now is at the very, very tail end of it, where there's 2 units left in the in building 1. And there are 5 buildings, 3 of which are entirely residential condos. They did have to go through a special use consideration for planning commission to get residential on the ground floor because it is a commercial zone. So that was done first. They went through the plating process. It is a singular parcel, which is what we deal with, is the land records parcels. So the project as a whole had to be developed before we could bring post-construction to you. So there's 1 unit that should get final inspection within the next week or so, and then another unit that has not gone forward with the interior build out. So what we've crafted for you is an approval of the order, pending that some completed work in that final commercial unit to at least accomplish the electrical and climate controls, so that it is considered post-construction. Not as worried about the aesthetics and the drywall and some of the other things, but the wiring and the climate control, so that we can consider it a finished building. And once that's done, we can fill that, sign it out, and continue the process.
Yeah, well, the abatement program was an incentive for businesses to come in here, so I'm glad we're using it.
Yes.
You know, and the businesses know that we have that. And I hope it's increased development, this abatement program in the city.
We've had
And I know
several
we did it
things.
first, and then the county feedback on us.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know the
That's how
order
we
was
did it.
on.
Yeah, we did it first. Yeah. Good deal.
So is there a motion to approve this?
I have a lot of questions about this. I've been trying to figure out some of this stuff, and I would like to wait until executive session to go over this.
Okay.
Can I speak?
Sure, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay.
Tracy's with this is Tracy Ross from Bentley.
A few things. I know from day one, this has been a different project for Ocean Springs. The multi-use, mixed use has always been a struggle for us to see where it falls within your guidelines. And this whole tax abatement is one of the main reasons that Mr. Thrash decided to move forward with this project. This has been going on, of course, for years and years. Construction's been slow, approvals have been slow. We've always been under the impression that this was going to move forward with all 95 condo units, and we have 4 retail spaces. So 3 of the 4 spaces are, well, 2 are completely done. 1 should be done next week. And then the second, or suite 2, we honestly don't have an intention of building it out on the inside at this point because several things we've learned as we went through. 4 bowls, we did kind of a build out. Then you have a tenant come in. They want something completely different. You have to get permits, you have to get plans, you have to get approvals. So then basically what you did is obsolete. So that's why with suite 2, although, 99% of our project is done, we really don't want to do a build out until we have a tenant. That could be a year from now, it could be 2 years from now, it could be never. It's not on our radar right now. We have 4 bowls, we have a yoga studio going in, we have Keg and Barrel. So to hold up the tax abatement because of one portion of, maybe like $100,000 out of a $10 million project makes 0 sense. And we have to go through the permitting process anyways. We have to have plans, we have to do a build out, we have to get approval. So that would all happen as that suite, something comes in to make that suite useful. And then I was also under the impression that this whole, well, I have emailed, we've met about this before. The numbers come across, 18 units only get this tax exemption. I don't know where that number came from, but we've met in 2019 with several people. Some are not with y'all anymore, but I even have an email from Nick with Jackson County that says, I received an AG opinion regarding the abatement today. It indicates that the abatement may be granted to the current owner and past and future owners in accordance with the granting authorities. So the abatement can be granted and applied to as many units and to any owners as the city sees fit. So I know this throws it back into the city's hands, but once again, it would have done us zero good to agree to do this if it only applied to 18 units out of 95. This is one of the biggest projects Ocean Springs has seen. It's bringing tax revenue on the sales side. I mean, Keg and Barrel, 4 Bowls, the business they've done since they've opened. Couldn't even imagine what they've done there. And with sales, this is going to hinder us if I don't get this approved by the end of the year, which is why I've been pushing to start the conversation, get this going, and get this approved, so that we can not only build a place up and sell them, but be a successful venture in Ocean Springs, which is what we all want. This is why this tax abatement was put in place to begin with.
Right. So, yeah, and we have been discussing this. We're gonna talk about it more in executive session. There's some things we have to discuss, but we're gonna make, we wanna make sure that we give you what you're entitled to. I can't speak for what was in the past, what was represented to y'all or anybody like that, but we're gonna make sure to get it right. So we're gonna discuss it more in executive session. We'll have something for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
All right, let's finish out the regular agenda department reports. So we'll go with building department. Review requested permit fee refund of $3,893 for Eagles Nest Road. Dale?
This was a cabin off project that went on for somebody since 2018. He finally got his permit January of this year, and due to circumstances he had no control over, he was unable to build the house. He was asking for a refund, and with the amount of the refund, I felt it was only fair that y'all make the decision to refund it.
I'll be honest, I didn't feel comfortable going ahead and approving this. How long were you working on it?
I want to say August of 2018 is when the builder started working on it. So with it being one of the worst flooded areas, there was a lot of back and forth with FEMA trying to get everything right in the house.
And with these fees and such, it's not just to get money out of people, it's to try to recoup some of the impact to the city resources that their project has. So I didn't feel comfortable doing it, but we wanted to bring it to the board as well.
So he didn't do the work, he didn't build the building, he got the permit, now he wants a refund.
So is he selling the property?
No, he actually, like in the future, he wants to actually come back and build a house there, hopefully within the next year or so. That was one of the things I offered, was to actually just renew the permit at any point he decided to actually start construction. But he didn't want to take a chance on there being a turnover, someone else being in this position, and him still being out as well. So, which I understand that.
Dale, did you spend a lot of time, I know it's a crazy question, what kind of time were we talking about you spent for $3,800?
I couldn't say that it was, like I say, I'm a third building official that's dealt with this. I did spend very little time, well, I spent some time in some of the meetings with FEMA while I was on loan to the city, maybe 2 hours. But once we finally got to the part of the plan review, it was pretty simple. Once they had everything answered, they needed to be.
Now, this is strictly building permits and plan review fees,
Yes, sir.
no tap fees are in this,
Yes, Everything's in there, that's just strictly plan review. The city charges a electrical fee at the beginning, that's in there, and then the cost of the permit fees.
So I spoke with Mr. Kavanaugh, and it is about Ward, and I'm gonna support the refund because he had, like you said, a situation come up that was not planned, and he wants to build at another time, but he wants to make sure he can afford to build and afford the situation he's got going on as well, so I've been supportive. And I'll make a motion to approve it, the refund for 10700 Eagles Nest Road.
Second. All right, motion by Mr. Blackman, second by Mr. Hill. Any further discussion?
Maybe I don't see no reason why not to vote on
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, Nicole, discussion of the White House Academy signage for lease agreement.
Yeah, this is pretty simple. The White House Breeding School has submitted their application to the building department for these signs that they won't put up at their new school. At the Tacony building, I think one is for a freestanding sign and then one is attached to the building. All of those are in your packet. The reason that it's under my name is because it was a part of the lease agreement, so it has to come to all of you for approval per the lease. If y'all have any revisions or Daryl may have something to say related to the location, but as far as I'm concerned, it's all good. It's just up to y'all to make the decision for the lease agreement.
Can somebody explain the one picture that is black and white, just them pointing at brick? What is that about? Is that where the sign's gonna go, or?
It's my understanding that that's where the previous sign was, and they plan to replace, like, that was where the Ruby School had their sign, and now that the Lighthouse is gonna reuse those poles that
It's
are
hard to
already there.
see in these black and white photos.
Well, they're coloring an email, but I haven't been like for them.
Picture above that, right? See the sign where they're talking about where it was.
I'll look at it, you can see where it was, but they're pointing at brick, and I'm like,
Yeah, I think they're pointing at holes, trying to indicate that they're gonna reuse them, is my understanding.
They're gonna reuse the home. No more homes.
Showing that they're not gonna bore additional holes, I think it's.
just make a point that we color pictures.
I'll work on
Do we need a motion on
Make a
this?
motion to approve the Lighthouse Academy signage for the lease agreement.
I'll second. All right, motion Mr. Henry, second Mr. Bellman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, we got a couple of department reports on the addendum. Approved budget amendments. City clerk.
Yeah, I thought I was lost, I was gonna interrupt you here a little bit. Yeah, so by law, the first meeting of July, we're required to look at our income, recognize any income that's not gonna come. I also saw it as a good time to do a budget amendment and, take out like some of the travel and all that, because we're not traveling, just pull down the budget somewhat. So, the first sheet is just showing that between removing income, and some of that has to do with, the after-school program didn't run, the kids didn't take the trips, there wasn't as much money, so we reduced what Jerry normally brings in by $120,000. But we also reduced her income going out for salaries, the buses. So a lot of this is just cleanup. If you have any questions, I can kind of go over all these if you want me to. They're pretty self-explanatory to me. That doesn't mean they always are to y'all. Payroll is running really well this year. Well, I say that, we were able to actually, we're not going to use $281,000 of what we budgeted for payroll. Some of that is because PD has been down a few people, just different reasons that happened. Altogether, with what y'all have in here, with us decreasing and increasing and the net, this will return $251,000 that won't get spent out of general fund. And then the enterprise fund, as you see that increased revenue, that's sewer and water. That's what looks like the increase is gonna come in, for sewer and water for the year. And I was pretty, I don't gamble with it very heavy, I'm a real low estimator. So for the enterprise a 355,000 positive number for us. The food and beverage, I think we'll recover that. That's just due to the COVID. You guys already knew that, but it's just, you know, I need to tell you all this. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any. None of it, you know, I think it's self-explanatory, but then I always think that.
Well, I think, you know, we've put in a lot of cost savings measures and such, and you know, frankly, if we didn't do a lot of the stuff we've been doing, we wouldn't be able to weather this storm of COVID. You know, we've prioritized in the right places, and you know, have just made sure to go and double check where we have leaks. And I want to thank the board for, you know, really, in my opinion, our budget is stronger than it's been in 2 decades. Because of the priorities of myself and this board, making sure that we keep our house in order, and you know, we're not just blowing money for nothing. So,
well, the department heads, I have to tell you,
and department heads,
they've been great to work with. You know, they just, I tell me what you really need. If you really need it, then we try to make it happen. If you don't need it, I ask it. We try to, you know, save all we can. And when we go into the budgets, we're going to find that the gas tank at PD really has been some savings. We've had quite a bit of savings just from our gas tanks and all this year, so no, I'm very pleased with where we are today.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any discussion on that, or can we go ahead and?
Good job, man.
Yep, good job.
You know, all of our department heads have done a great job. I make a motion to approve the budget amendments.
Second. All right, motion on Mr. Hamby, second Mr. Blackman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, Public Works approved payment application.
That's for the CIPP, that's the pipeline program we started in 2018. That's just the final payout, we finally got everything on picture and the way it's supposed to be.
Are all the pipelines in place?
All the ones that we could afford this time, yeah.
We got another round at some point.
That's the one coming.
Need a motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve,
Item B on department reports from the.
yeah. Item T,
All right, motion on Mr. Gill. Second on Mr. Papania. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, and with that, we are at public comments. I have, I think George was there when we did our, Doug, did you have anything while they signed up?
Could I make one other comment? Because I didn't touch on it, and I just hope, and again, not normal times. One of the things we haven't faced yet is the reopening of our schools. It's a huge deal for pretty much every family, or family-oriented community. And so I just think, you know, those things we can do, help flatten that curve, are super important also from that perspective, because we've got to get our kids back in school. We've got parents who are working, and I'm talking to these people every day, they're not real sure what they're going to do if the schools can't get kids back in. And I think the number one thing we can do as a community is to try and do those things that Lee and Georgia were talking about bringing our numbers back down to where they were in May, beginning of June. So please, I just want to encourage you all to talk to, I'm sure you are, the superintendents and principals about how, again, as a community, and y'all as our community leaders can get on board to help them, because that's the next, I think, the biggest hurdle for us is getting our schools back open and functioning.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next I have Greg Gibson.
Good evening. I just want to address the board quickly. As you know, the state flag has finally came down with the approval from the state legislature, which is a decision that should have been made a long time ago. And just reading through the articles that Warren Kulo wrote, that says Ocean Springs should be a leader and not a follower. And he was spot on with that. And let me say this. And he talked about the demographics, which is 8.7% of Ocean Springs is made of African Americans here, which all you guys were elected to run your ward and also, you know, represent the whole city of Ocean Springs. And I felt like our community was left out of the process. You know, prior to the new mayor took over, that flag was down, so it's fixed now. And I do want to say, Rob, I do respect you for being the man that you are, because you said in the article that Isabel wrote that you did it because your back was against the wall. You know, that's not easy, but you admitted to your mistake and you owned it. Excuse me, I'm gonna take this mask off. But you owned it, you know, and it takes a real man to own your mistakes. And when they called me and interviewed me from the Sun Herald, asked me how did I feel, I told them I was very, you know, overwhelmed and happy, you know, because we've been down here several months, you know, talking about this flag that has divided this whole city. And this city wasn't like that. So now's the time to come together as one unit and make it right, people. Let's just make it right, do what's right. That, all this is in both of these articles. You know what to do. You know, do what is right. Look at your advisory boards, look at all these boards that we got, and include everybody. It should not be dominated by all male or female. It should be all inclusive. Do what's right. We know what to do. Ocean Springs is better than that. You guys are better than that. Ricky, thank you for standing up. Sometimes you gotta stand alone in an island and be out there by yourself. But you did what was right. And I'm gonna leave you guys with this. When Matt McDonald was in that same seat, when he talked about Fellows, the parking lot over there in Pleasant, he came down, he had a conversation with us and said, Greg, what do you think about this? I said, wonderful. The only two black African American streets are any type of parking lots that are named after any African Americans here is actually Miss Keys High School, the old Keys High School. Then we got the Pleasant Fellows, and then we also got Dr. Jesse L. Trotter Street. Those are the three. Nobody else is named after any type of public buildings here in Ocean Springs. So let's look at some of that stuff, you know, because at the end of the day, all this down here was owned by blacks. Go back and read your history. All this was owned by blacks. All this was owned by blacks. Go and look at your history. Look at Miss Mayfield. She worked at Trilley's along with my mom. She opened up her own business. You know, she was one of the black-owned businesses here in Ocean Springs. Look at all that stuff. You know, let's get our heads out of the sand and let's have a conversation about racial dialogue. Let's talk about it because it's not going anywhere. It's here. So we all need to be at the table. We all grown, we're all adults, and we need to talk about it. Have the conversation. That's all we're talking about.
All right, we have allotted 30 minutes total for public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board for up to 3 minutes? All right, and with that, we'll go to Alderman's Forum. Mr. Gill.
I have nothing, Mayor.
I have one thing. I have a tree on Porter Avenue that's in bad shape that we got an estimate to remove the tree is $4,800. And that's this down if you want to look at it. But I need to make a motion that we allow the building department to move forward with removing this tree.
Where's it at?
It's on our property. It's in bad shape.
Yeah, it looks bad.
Yeah, it's split.
Where is it? On Porter?
Yeah, Porter and Jackson.
Live up.
It's in bad shape. It's split. I should have show you the picture. Sorry.
It's on the right of way?
It's right on it. And I don't believe with the condition that tree is in that we should wait to,
You got the money there, get out of the tree.
I've talked with, Ray, and he said that he can look at it, and he agrees with us to be on repair, or anything done.
Yeah, we always ask everybody that cuts us down to plant it. Yes, money to buy, they would have planted there.
Is it endangering property or people or houses?
It's endangering the house, the two houses on each side of it.
The thing is, I mean, if it was in good enough shape to try and get it all
Consider
fixed, but
this.
it's not that, it's not a case.
Yeah, we've got the money there.
Ricky, you wanna make the motion?
Ricky, I'll second it. I would like to ask, is can we look at a replacement of our funds to plant another one back since it's on the right of way? If we're clear of lines there.
I'm sure location there, Rob.
We need to look at that. If we can put, a 4-inch or 3-inch.
Well, how about this, let's leave that on the motion, and then I'll get with Daryl, and we can, and Alan, and we can see where we can identify.
There's no.
Pushing the sidewalk, let's look at that.
Somewhere else in town.
So motion by Mr. Hoffman, second by Mr. Blackman, any further discussion?
Yeah, it don't have to be in the same location. Because everybody comes up with it, the plan is raising it. We approved them cutting down the line low.
Yeah, I'll get with Daryl and Alan, we'll see if we can find a spot. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
That's it, that's all I have.
I don't have.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Could just call you offline, but I just want to know one more update on the demonstration sidewalk project.
I went back and forth with MDOT all last week and today, and for whatever reason, this supplemental agreement, they keep coming back with little things, because it is completely out of the box, and it made them nervous, but I think we finally got the final version I sent back today. I made the two small edits that they wanted, so once we get that on track, we just have to get, hopefully they'll let me know by tomorrow that it's okay. Then we send it to commission, which might take a couple weeks, and once that's approved, they order the stuff and we keep moving, but that's what's held us up. I've been back and
So
forth with
that
Federal Highway.
closes the existing contract completely out.
That will
Allows us to move forward with the
Right.
new contract.
It modifies it to remove the installation and change it to simply purchase and delivery only, so then they will go ahead and they'll pick up both the prefab bridge and the pilings, which are sitting next to vendors, and I've been working with Public Works on where to store them, but we had to do that modification to remove the quantities. We're able to do it through a supplemental agreement, rather than through the termination agreement. That's what really threw Federal Highway's attorneys off, so we've simplified it. Once I get approval for that, they can finish the work being pickup, delivery, and then close out, and then we'll have to repackage and advertise the installation, which will be a separate process.
Thank you. The only other thing, Mayor, Alan, thank you for the work and prepared by you last week or so, man. It's been a long time coming, and yeah, they got the intersection paved, and listen, one little section aside. The one on Renewal Circle that had the washout under the storm drain. You got a timeline on it?
He's looking to do that in about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And then the pipe connection in front of Dr. Pavlik's house.
That's gonna be the same thing.
Same time, so 2 weeks.
We're trying to start the drainage on the Mills Avenue project Thursday. This Thursday.
Carol, that's the answer I need from you, 2 weeks.
Well, as soon as I can give it to you, I'll give you the first note.
Let me know when it's 2 weeks.
Yeah. 2 weeks.
Started in 2016.
That project started 2 months.
It was on the books long before any
Actually,
of us.
construction started in 16.
And it's been stopped since November 17th.
Hey, Greg Gibson, you brought up Trillbridge, that brought back memories. I hadn't heard that name in years. Little kid going to Trillbridge. Awesome. That's all I got, buddy.
I was curious status on the KEG drainage.
With with those two, both of them are moving along, the design phase for both the Fort Bayou projects and the Parktown projects. We are having to deal with the permitting, so we're in the permitting. Parktown is more than likely going to need some sort of core permit. We're hoping to get under the nationwide one, but we're waiting for that to come back from the Corps. So permitting phase could take, you know, I'm not even gonna try to guess, but as soon as we have that, then we should have final design, and I anticipate that we'll be able to advertise by by end of summer, hopefully.
Okay. Mayor, I don't know if it was discussed, or Ricky, on that tree, I know there was a big dead section, now it looks like it's split down the middle, but, I'd hate to see the remnants of that thing just turn into firewood. I know we have some talented wood carvers and artists in the area. If there's some large salvageable pieces of that tree, it'd be nice to see it go to our art museum.
Yeah, we did the same thing that, we did before.
Yeah. I just want to make
Maybe if we do something in place, you talk about saving the junk of it.
trucks. I think the truck has had it, but, I mean, just something to take into consideration, but.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Truck and train.
See if y'all can get
As they say, it may be something I want to talk to Donnie about.
Yeah, just ask them to say it for us.
That's all I got.
Good idea.
All right, we got some items for executive sessions. There is a motion to go into closed
I'm
session.
going to make a motion to go into executive session.
Closed session.
Closed session, so we can stay in executive session.
All right, motion by Mr. Gale, second by Mr. Blackman, all in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries.
Yeah, I just saw that.
And then what about that? They're not open yet, Alright, so these for you. How are y'all getting?
We were about to be in quarantine because and one of his coworkers tested positive, so just got his results on that yesterday is negative. So we were ready to go on quarantine in our office.
Already talked to them about it.
That's why if Amanda's brother had tested, and his brother too, lives with him. So her brother got back his test, they were both negative. But they expect positive.
Those are what about, I don't think right now, but those are the ones, those came in positive.
Where the all ones with the whole building,
Good, she should have an individual last day.
My building, they like $13 yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah, it's not all full
For the air street, right? I was gonna say the trailer, I'm like, where?
Take it easy, take care of the parking spot.
It's okay.
We went over there, last week. Yeah, I think
We'd like for you to be there. I mean.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't get the problem there. It's not like-
You know what I'm saying? But I can send somebody out there to the house, make them check
in the
this.
water, then you're back up on
All this, I mean,
I got a migraine right now.
I've had a migraine, the crazy weather, and now my acid reflux causes me to
It'll go off.
if we're talking about for the finance.
and it does.
No problem.
So I was all sneezing and everything.
Thank you.
No fever, I keep checking my.
I tell you what, that was not what, we check that every time.
Yeah, if we could.
There you go.
But yeah, it's like, so now it's like, I need to clear my throat, and I'm like, I want people to think I'm sick
I
somewhere.
can tell you that you got more work, but it sounds like.
No, I just have, I have acid reflux from stress now, thank you very much, so it's hard.
Well, but don't worry, I got mad.
I mean,
Cross my mind.
common cold. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's not happening anymore.
If I do, I'd live down there, that's not my
I
son.
forgot I was supposed to go back there, I'm busy working with them.
Yeah, I got this morning, felt like my head was late. There's size, I sat outside yesterday, it was late.
Well, I.
Do you know who the person is gonna hire?
The sun is burning.
Jerry meant under
After I mow my grass.
Well, that's the first
I know what it is, it's sun, it's
I throw up over there.
Yeah, I'm thinking, truck decided to retire.
She said that the state was
I'm like, I've got a whole list, and he's like,
Sweating 'cause it don't.
how are you?
Yeah, it still messes me up, I'm very glad.
All the little projects.
It's a man,
You know,
you know what I mean?
This tree fell. I don't think they're like the skills of shed that had all my lawnmowers and stuff in it. Got caught up, another little building, I got caught up in.
But we can figure it out.
Insurance had Go
Oh, I know. You know, and I come home and he's feeling, you know.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on
Ain't no
that.
big deal.
I talked to Nicole and I are gonna talk about that tomorrow. We're gonna require a bond of some sort. Now we got the bond. Before it was the drowned. But they're the ones that just got the final plat, it's my responsibility.
We got a new developer wants to do that. One, he can see, he can see all go for his house, that he grew up in.
$250,000.
But that
Oh,
That million that night.
Yes, I was
There's something in that file. Do we?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Motion by John Hill, seconded by Bobby Cox, to stay in executive session to discuss a litigation update with the Sands versus Ocean Springs, litigation update in the Lane versus Ocean Springs appeal, personnel in the Parks Department, discuss potential litigation regarding the Mary C, discuss potential litigation regarding post-construction tax abatement for the inlet, discuss potential litigation on the Civic Center rentals, and they want me to keep Carolyn, Cheryl, Mindy, Humpty, and I said Hoffner since he's carrying it. Hey, Donovan. Well,
he just does what post construction.
You may go. We got you lined up for.
Yeah. See you later, Chief.
See you tomorrow. Discussion, I guess, will be the fire and police thing.
Behave now. Try not to.
Yeah, I've got some quotes today.
I only set 20 minutes because we weren't gonna really talk budgets, we were just gonna talk Christmas list or wish list and,
I took a.
and I knew you had wanted to get on that. We're not really
She don't
gonna
wanna
talk
see her
regular
wish list.
budget.
We're getting our HVAC, because I saved money, but
Until, you know,
I haven't fixed it.
that's what I'm saying, they basically the same. Just little, you know.
So Bill's Avenue's done? The water sewer.
Well, they will-
Oh, Harold drainage, that's. It's not done, you said it was done.
I got a voice over the I thought
Everybody still. She is going.
Okay, so there's still some service, the line's done, it's just service.
Yeah, we ain't got back heat test back from them, but we got pressure test back.
Gotta put it in the service. Yeah, once that's done, it's y'all's problem.
She still refers to it as a
Yeah, you got 977,000
So it's
pictures.
still not being produced.
I only need 7,000.
I think you take a picture every 14 seconds.
And I'll be through, if they don't like.
He's good at that.
Way too many.
It is, it's better to have too
I tell
much.
you what, he got the name, one time they went to the bathroom, and this one walked across the street without a cigarette.
I don't care, what time is fine, what they did, I don't need to know.
Yeah, I'll tell him though.
Because they're not working, all these people not working, you have all these shortages.